Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another perfect opening to another perfect show. Hi, this is the ComicBase Livestream. I'm your host, Pete Bickford. Anyway, welcome. This is the pre-Memorial Day show. It's number 171. I cannot believe we've been doing this for this many years. But anyway, thank you all for being here, and I really appreciate your being part of the audience. If you would please hit the like and subscribe. If you would at the top of YouTube. If you have any comments during the stream, please put them to @ComicBase TV. I will hit as many of them as I possibly can. But and also one thing I found out that actually does seem to make a real difference is at some point, if you're just feeling the urge, please in the show comments, not the chat, but the comments on the show, please put any comment at all, like Pete. You look so incredibly sunburnt, or whatever the thing is, and we'll take it from there. It actually does help quite a bit with the algorithm. So that's the thing. The plan is for the next probably not, this one's probably gonna be a bit on the short side today, but normally these run about an hour. But we're gonna be talking a little bit about comic base, but a lot of tech news for once, and then a little bit of comic news. We have some crazy things going on in the world. We have variant content coming out from Marvel. We have Wolverine 50 coming out with a million things, and we have a couple of tips about defeating persistent comic-based prompts that users have asked for, as well as some reporting questions, and whatever else you folks are putting in the chat, I will do my best to answer them. I'd like to welcome, first of all, we have our very much appreciated moderator, Gregory Hecht, in the audience today. I also want to say hello to folks out there. Scrolling up here as my mouse works. Mike Beam looks like he's first in the house from the Pacific Northwest. Oro Viejo, the famous, according to ChatGPT, stage director Oro Viejo is out here from Minneapolis. He has a story. If he feels like sharing it, I'll tell him. But if you ask ChatGPT who it is, you're going to get an earful. Noah Gutler's out here. Robbie Weinberg, our aforementioned moderator, Stephen Dazinger, aka Stealth DBA, the amazing tech guy behind everything. Fabian Vandrisha from Belgium. Rain. Welcome all the way from Belgium. Jet City Comics. I guess the whole thing we have going on for us is rain, and we have a huge storm blowing in here as well. So if the lights go out in the middle of the podcast, you will know exactly what happened. And Xandu Comics, welcome from Seattle. So a brief bit of comic-based news before we get going here. I'm just going to say a lot of life has been happening in to my life lately, and so I'm a little bit behind some plans I'd had as far as the next version internal rollout to our testing group. If you're a part of that or if you would like to be part of that group, please let me know. I'll put my email up on the screen here if this is working. And awesome. My board decided to shut down. Sweet. So this is going to make the show awesome. But anyway, P. Bickford at human-computing.com. If you'd like to be part of the internal test group, we're going to start the kickoff, I think, right after Labor Day. There was a chance to get it going this week, but honestly, too many things are in flux. And as I was sitting there this weekend, just kicking back for once, just having a chat with my wife over a glass of wine, I looked out the window and a ginormous, I see this flurry of activity out in our yard, and this ginormous 70-foot tree just fell down for no reason whatsoever. Basically, it was a huge tree that roots had been dug out by the cicadas. They're coming out everywhere, which, by the way, if you're not part of this wonderful cicada festivities that we're all having here in the United States, it sounds nothing so much as like the orbiting flying saucer effect from every Jerry Anderson movie, or basically any space laser effect from Doctor Who. But just imagine that's your backyard all the time. It's like it's like just anytime you go out. Anyway, apparently cicadas, even though they apparently are a really good PR firm working for them, saying, oh, they're wonderful and they help the environment, they till up the soil. Yeah, another thing they do apparently is they eat the crap out of the roots of certain trees, and then they take their big buggy bodies and lay on the branches. And apparently that was enough to do in this huge tree in my yard. So I've spent every spare moment I've had when I wasn't working this week with a chainsaw pulling the whole thing apart. And so anyway, this has been a good time, and I'm a little behind. Anyway, other things going on in life. Back in ComicBase, we are working on ComicBase Mobile 3.0. We have started off the coding on that one, and we are working with an outside specialist in a net technology called MAUI, MAUI, multiple application user interface, something like that. But basically, it's the successor to Xamarin. It's the thing that allows you to write the code so that it runs on iOS and Android and things like that. And for various and complicated reasons, which I'm happy to get into if people are interested in really geeking out, Microsoft has decided to obsolete Xamarin and convert to a new platform. So we are having to convert our mobile app as well. The good news is, as we're doing that, we're getting a chance to update several things that have been on our wish list. We're going to be fixing dark mode on iOS. We'll be fixing the camera for Apple iPhone Pros, and thank you iPhone for iOS for that, because I just had to lay out $700 on a new, well, not new, but a used iPhone Pro purely for testing. I'm not an iPhone guy myself these days, but that was great. Anyway, but we have a lot of things going on with that, and I look forward to having that appear in the App Store in the coming weeks. But it looks like things are well underway with that. Other things going on. I want to talk a little bit about the mobile Microsoft cross technology stuff. We'll probably be doing a session on running ComicBase on your Mac next week. This is with all the emphasis on iPhones and iOS and things like that. It occurred to me it'd be a really good tutorial if we did a special. Probably, I'm not sure if it'll be a live stream, but we're hoping to do like a tutorial video on how, if you have a Macintosh, especially one of the new M1 or M2, M3, whatever, the Apple Silicon ones, how to get ComicBase running on that, and lead you through how to use that under Parallels. And we're also looking at a different technology called UTM, because the neat thing about that is Parallels Desktop, they've split into a model where, in order to run on the Apple Silicon, you need quite a recent version of Parallels Desktop. And even though you can run it for free for a bit, they're going to want you to pay some money. And ideally, they want to, like so many things these days, they want you to pay for money every single year or they stop running. But there are some alternatives, and I have you can't see it, but I have my multiple MacBooks out here on the desk next to me, where I'm trying out some of these ones here so we can run through it and see what these steps look like. And if we could come up with a nice, concise tutorial on how to get that stuff running, ideally for little or no money, we would like to do that next week. So hopefully that's of interest to some of you. If not, I guess there's there's always the alternative, simply running on the $289 mini PC that we've got, that we run our demos on for the show. That's another very affordable way to get going on that if you are caught without a Windows PC to run stuff. Greg Heck says Cicada is so much more than just a breakfast cereal. Yeah, I've had it with those guys. Another fun factor I found out about cicadas, other than that they have apparently, the broods normally pop up every couple years, but apparently there's long-term broods that do it every 13 or 17 years, and both of those are happening at the exact same time, which is why everything that's a tree in our area of the country is just completely covered with little suckers. But one thing I found out about them is that they're apparently attracted to not light, not smell, sound. And you know what really attracts them? The sound of chainsaws. So as you're sitting there trying to chop off a 70-foot tree that they downed, they're also swarming you and trying to get you to kill yourself by flying into your face on the chainsaw. So yeah, good times. Anyway, let's move on. All right, so the big tech news. I gotta say, I used to complain that, as a tech guy, I mean, I've been a tech dude since I was playing around with photography as like an 8-year-old. But as a tech guy, I remember posting to my friends at one point, about a decade ago. I was like, is anyone else just getting bored? I mean, with the scene. I mean, what's the last thing we've seen that's really interested us in the world of tech? And this was a time where, like, the newest thing from Apple was like the Apple Watch, which is like, okay, so you kind of took an iPhone, but not really, and you stuck it as a piece of fashion accessory on your wrist, and it's got a tracker for stuff, and it's like, it didn't feel like the old days when, like, every couple of years there'd be some invention that would just set the world on fire, and like everyone had to have it. It was blowing things away. Like, when we all went from like there was like the search for like $500 and below laptops, which were all just really, really crappy laptops, if you remember that era. And then Apple came out with this amazing piece of glass that was like a magic tablet. It was straight out of 2001. It was called the iPad. I mean, things like that have not been going on in the tech field for a while, and then suddenly in this last year or so, it's been boom, boom, boom every 2 seconds. I mean, I am literally getting to the point where there's been so many things rocking the tech world that I'm getting a little like, like where do things stand? And of course, the biggest one is AI. The I'm going to be the I'm going to go out on the limb right now and say, just like we've had naming the generations, the boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z. I think Gen Alpha, as it rolls around, it's going to be Gen AI, and because I think that thing that was always 2 years in the future is now current, and it's everywhere you go. It's shaping things so fast, and it's getting better so fast that I think we are going to have a really big time trying to deal with this, incorporate it into our lives, and just cope with all the changes it's making. I think it's really going to be rocking us back on our feet for a while until we figure out what's what. And hopefully in the meantime we don't give it like the keys to the nuclear missile silos and decide that we want to relive Terminator or anything silly like that. But anyway, the big ones that came out this year is OpenAI, the same guys who brought us ChatGPT. This is like the technology that really just scared the crap out of people about, a bit ago with ChatGPT 3. And Sora, more recently, which we've done a number of streams on the live stream about, with the ability to, literally just give a text prompt and have it create short videos in full motion, I mean, completely convincing videos of things. And we talked about on one of I think last show, we talked about EMO, emotive picture alive, where you can just take a single still frame and put it with an audio track, and suddenly the whole thing comes to life. These things are pretty impressive, but what we're seeing now is it's all starting to come together. And where it came together in a really big way was ChatGPT. They call it 4.0. And the O is for Omni. And that sound, if you can catch it in the microphone that's coming in right now, is apparently just a mother of a storm that just blew in. So like I say, if the lights go out, then that's okay. If I may have brought the live stream early on to start the generator, but hopefully not. Anyway, what's happening with 4.0, ChatGPT 4.0, the main thing about it is that they've taken all these kind of nascent bits that we've all seen before. We've all seen text to speech. We've all seen things that recognize your speech. Think about Apple Siri, right? We've seen things that will generate pictures. We've seen things a little bit that will look at a picture and tell you something about it. And of course, we've seen the text-based things where you can talk to it for a bit and it will chat back and forth and give you analyses of different things, or write you a screenplay for the next episode of Seinfeld, or whatever the thing is. We've seen those, and those have all gotten pretty good. What we have not seen before is putting the whole thing together in a really convincing way. And here's the part where I'm going to try very hard to play a video clip. And if it doesn't work, then I'm going to vamp over it. But let's see if we can make this happen.
Hey, ChatGPT, I'm Mark. How are you?
Oh, Mark. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Hey, so I'm on stage right now. I'm doing a live demo, and frankly, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. Can you help me calm my nerves a little bit?
Oh, you're doing a live demo right now? That's awesome. Just take a deep breath. And remember, you're the expert here.
I like that suggestion. Let me try a couple deep breaths. Can you give me feedback on my breaths? Okay, here I go.
Whoa, slow down a bit there. Mark, you're not a vacuum cleaner. Breathe in for a count of 4.
Okay, let me try again. So I'm going to breathe in deeply. And then out.
For 4, and then exhale slowly.
Okay, I'll try again. Breathing in and breathe out.
That's it. How do you feel?
I feel a lot better. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's talk about what we just saw and heard there, and hopefully the audio came through okay. It was a little choppy on my end, but honestly, I had moments before the live stream in order to transcode video files. So I apologize if any of that was twitchy. I will throw links to the original demos in the show notes so you can check it out for yourself. But what we're seeing here is taking all this to a level we have not seen before. I mean, first of all, let's assume, for the sake of argument, that this isn't a rigged demo. I mean, this would be exactly the point where I don't know if you guys ever saw a movie called Shooting Fish, which, if you haven't, is brilliant. You definitely check it out. It's a British caper movie, kind of a rom-com caper movie, but where they had faked essentially a AI demo using their secretary and a text-to-speech thing, where she's just listening in on a microphone and typing responses to a text-to-speech thing. But let's assume they didn't fake that one, because I think there's enough things that are similar to it that we've seen from other sources. If nothing else, that yeah, it seems like that probably was real. It might have been optimized for what they just did there, or maybe it wasn't. We don't know. But let's for the moment assume that what we saw and heard was real, and let's take in how different that is from what we've seen before. All right. So first of all, the vocal interface is all right. So let's talk about the voice acting in the whole thing is crazy good. It's it is literally to the point where that would be, if that was a real person, that would be the cute girl that like you really wish was your girlfriend. You know, it's not just Siri, but it's like, you know, hello Peter, how is it going? You know, no, it's like, oh hi, you know, hey, how are you doing? I'm having a great day. It's like, you know, and throwing in that kind of like flirty vocal inflection, you know, this would be like the funnest person at your office. This would be like the funnest girlfriend, you know, you were having, etc. And presumably, you know, they have a version that'll work for women as well. But they're throwing the human element in this one in a huge way, and that is huge. I mean, we are getting to the point where, like, yeah, we figured out how to give answers that make English sense. We've figured out how to do, you know, nice pictures and things like that. But now throwing in the kind of like the charm is a way of selling this whole thing. That's new. We haven't seen that before. And they've been doing it. You'll see it in their other demos. They do it great. Other things that happen. First of all, they're interacting with the whole thing. He's giving me this, and it's like, yeah, I'm live on stage right now. I'm giving a demo. Whoa, right now? You're kidding me. You know, it's like, you know, and they say things like, again, like a human would say them if they were really excited to be part of it. He's saying, yeah, you know, it's like, you know, I'm a little nervous. So what should you do? And say, okay, so it goes to its data bank. It says, what are the advices for calming down someone? Okay, take a deep breath. Okay. It's like, you know, and, you know, gets coached through the whole thing, listens to the sound of the breathing. And we sits there and goes, and actually cracks a joke. It's like, hey, man, you're not a vacuum cleaner. Come on, you know, chill out. Extraordinary. We haven't seen this before outside of movies. And if we're to believe the demo is fully legit, this is real now. I mean, people are always, and the Sam Altman from OpenAI is definitely, when he was tweeting it, or whatever you call tweet in the age of X, you know, Xing it. You know, he was his intro to the whole thing was just Her, which of course is a reference back to the Spike Jonze movie Her, where a guy essentially falls in love with his computer, voiced by Scarlett Johansson. A little bit more on that later. But yeah, this is definitely a level of interaction that it's getting out of the uncanny valley and into something that is actually like, wow, this is actually more pleasant to deal with than real people in my life. And so I definitely could see that this could change some things in ways that are, again, beyond what we've seen before, for better or for worse. I want to show you a little bit more of that clip if I can get it to run. So let's find out if I can make that happen.
So Mark, you've been working on these capabilities for a while now. Can you tell us a bit how it's different from voice mode?
Right. So if you've used our voice mode experience before, you'll notice a couple key differences. First, you know, you can now interrupt the model. You don't have to wait for it to finish your turn before you can start speaking, and you know, you can just butt in whenever you want. Second, the model is real-time responsiveness. So that means that you don't have this awkward 2 to 3 second lag before you wait for the model to give a response. And finally, the model picks up on emotion, right? When I was breathing super hard there, it could tell, and it knew, hey, you might want to calm down a little bit. You're kind of running a little bit too fast. So, you know, it really has that capability across the board to perceive your emotion. Not only that, though, the model is able to generate voice in a variety of different emotive styles. And it really has a wide dynamic range. So I'm going to fire up another demo for
Awesome.
that. Yeah. Hey, ChatGPT, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Pretty good.
What's up?
So my friend Barrett here, he's been having trouble sleeping lately. And I want you to tell him a bedtime story about robots and love.
Oh, a bedtime story about robots and love? I got you covered. Gather round, Barrett. Once upon a time, in a world not too different from ours, there was a robot named Bite. Bite was a curious robot, always
I like the way you
exploring.
started this story, but I want a little bit more emotion in your voice, a little bit more drama.
Got it. Let's add some drama. Once upon a time, in a world not too different from ours, there was a robot named Bite.
No, ChatGPT. I really want maximal emotion, like maximal expressiveness, much more than you were doing before.
Understood. Let's amplify the drama. Once upon a time, in a world not too different from ours, there was a robot named Bite. Bite
Actually, can
was
you do this in a robotic voice now?
initiating dramatic robotic voice. Once upon a time, in a world not too different from ours, there was a robot named Bite. Bite was a curious robot, always exploring new
So I'm
circuits.
seeing Barrett here calm down a little bit. Can you end the story, but do it in a singing voice?
And so Bite found another robot friend, and they lived circuitly ever after.
Thank you so much.
I definitely feel a lot more relaxed.
Unbefreaking-believable. Again, this is better than the stuff we imagined and put on film in 2001. It's I mean, it's in many ways it's an improvement over the ideas that were in the movie Her. But I mean, all these things beforehand were all fakes. I mean, they were all very carefully constructed voice acting performances over video. Where else? If we're to believe, and I think we probably can, that this is a straight up real-time performance of an AI. Everything you saw there, absolutely astonishing. How fast the responses came back, that the fact that they threw in humor, the fact, and this is subtle, but it's worth mentioning, that it gave, when they said, like, do it in a robotic voice, it could have done a robot. I mean, like, there's no reason it couldn't have, just gone straight up for, a full-on robot voice. But no, it did the cute girl or whatever this is voice pretending to be a robot voice. In other words, it's like, it would be like, hello, I am a robot. It did that as opposed to really doing a full-on robot sound effect type thing, which it would have been equally easy to do. So I mean, the psychology behind it is freaking impressive. I mean, if this was a person, it would be one of the more charming people you've ever met. And so, let's assume this is Silicon Valley. God knows we optimize our demos. I mean, and there's time to do tweaking right beforehand just to make sure that the one thing you're going to demo looks extra special, sexy. But if the reality is anywhere near this, wow, this is absolutely stunning. So anyway, that is a new thing in the world now. I'm not sure what the rollout status on this one is. Apparently, ChatGPT has a pro and a not pro setting on the whole thing. I'm not sure how the path on rolling this stuff is out. Just like as with Sora, if you're like a filmmaker and you've gotten in with them, they give you keys to the kingdom and you can play around and make your own stuff. And right now, the rest of us are kind of waiting for the model that allows us to put down our credit card and pay. But this is definitely something that's going to be impacting our world. And that's just as good a segue as I'm ever going to get to what happened this week with the Build conference. Now, Build is Microsoft's big dev conference. I'm very keenly interested in this one, obviously, because we're a Microsoft shop. I got to keep up on the latest technology. I'm very interested in, say, their cross-platform stories. But we get invited to the Build conference every year, and was checking as many of the sessions online as I could today. In the last couple of days, when I wasn't chainsawing things. But the number one, definitely the theme this year is that Microsoft is all in on AI. They Microsoft has a pretty good record of recognizing the big, overwhelming trend in the industry and basically just scrambling the jacks, to get on top of it. I mean, for example, I mean, Microsoft, the closed system that we all knew and well, we felt however we felt about it with, say, Windows 95. When the when the legal lawsuits were around being a closed system and a monopoly were circling in the dawn of the internet. They got the message hard in order not to be broken up. Steve Ballmer was appointed as the CEO. Bill Gates stepped down, became the chief technologist. They put their I'd say they put down a lot of lip service around the idea of open source. Eventually, they decided to embrace the internet standards. That's where the idea of .NET came from. But later on, as things turned out, they really I mean, they actually wound up doing some things that became open source hugely. And in the end, they put .NET itself, which is basically the guts of all things Microsoft. They put that into open source and so that's the origin of why this stuff now can be found on other platforms, Microsoft, Apple, Unix, etc. I mean, so when you see them like really get everything together, and they did it again with Windows 8 when because they're scared to death by the iPad. I mean, they were prior to when the iPad came out, they had just made, was it Satya Nadella, I think, had just been appointed as the successor to Ballmer. And he had made the announcement, and this was also part of the strategy to not get hung up on anti monopoly lawsuits. They had said, look, we're going to make Windows free on all devices with a 9-inch or lesser screen. Now, okay, what was 9 inches or lesser? Well, first of all, there were certain really crappy laptops, which, if you guys remember netbooks, we certainly had one of those back in time. And there was a reason that those were 8.9-inch screens. But more importantly, they were trying very hard to get a Windows Phone off the ground, which unfortunately, for them got, nowhere at all. But they definitely were thinking, hey, we're going to make Windows be the choice of it'll be the free thing that you can do to put on your little micro device thing, which they thought was going to be a netbook or a small tiny laptop. And then Apple came out with a tablet, and they were like, what do we do now? And their answer was, let's rethink the entire interface to be unified in a way that the same interface can run across touch platforms and tablets and touch PCs and things like that. And that was, God help us, the idea behind the Metro interface in Windows 8, which, look, it had a lot of things that were like really not great on them. But as a big company, I mean, this is beyond the idea of turning around the aircraft carrier in the lagoon. As a big company, the idea you're going to re-architect yourself on a dime to try to fit into a brand new metaphor that's sweeping the tech world, you got to give them props for that. I mean, not many companies would have the balls to try that, and they absolutely did. So let me see here. Oh, interesting. Oro says, after 3 freebies, I guess that's the ChatGPT, the paywall come up. You can buy various lengths of time, week, months, day. Recall 16 cents a day on a yearly basis. But interesting. Yeah, I also imagine with ChatGPT, going back to this one, this is Oro raising the question. My guess is that a lot of the higher end things that they're doing, I mean, I'm thinking about things like Sora. My guess is those things are expensive as hell to run, and that you will probably be paying a pretty price on them. Or I could be wrong, because, and again, this is by way of a segue, the big thing that Microsoft announced this time at their developer conference was that they're going in on AI in all things. Now, they start out with the idea of running AI as commands in Copilot, so you can click on your microphone and say hey, set my window, set my display settings to be blah blah blah, make screen 2 my primary display, increase my volume. Very basic stuff. And their initial set of announcements that they had leaked, and they put this in their latest I think it was 24 H2 feature set for Windows 11, was like, oh yeah, and look, there's a couple dozen more things that you can command Copilot to do for you. And you look at that and you just kind of snooze. Satya Nadella and the Microsoft team absolutely got the news that the world is shifting around them. And so in their latest integrations, they announced, among other things, that they're going to integrate not only lots of stuff in Copilot. Matter of fact, they have a whole new architecture called Copilot Plus, which we'll get to in a moment. But they're also integrating as an API, ChatGPT 4.0 right into Windows. And some of the things that they showed on it, and I hope to God this demo plays because it's neat. I'm sorry, not 4.0, I meant 4.0, the Omni version of it, because what it's doing in this case is it's actually looking at what is on the user's screen as a real-time chat, suggesting strategies to deal with playing Minecraft. So let me see if this demo plays, and if not, I'll talk through what it did say. But crossed fingers here.
Into what you do on the PC, and now we.
Nah, of course it isn't going to do it. All right, darn about that. And of course, it probably at the same time probably just froze up my entire screen playback. Anyway, they had a demo that they showed, which is a person essentially sharing their screen with Copilot. So Copilot is running like your buddy, looking over your shoulder in this case. The guy's playing Fortnite. He says, like, he's sitting there staring at a crafting table and says, like, well, I don't know, I got to make a sword. Can I do that? And so, well, the good, and this is ChatGPT talking in real time. It's looking at what he's got on the screen in front of him. And it says, well, looks like you've got a crafting table there in front of you. So that's a good start. Let's see what you got in your inventory, and we'll see if you got the things you need to make the sword. And then go ahead and press I to open up your inventory, and then it shows the inventory. It says, well, okay, this part's good because you got that, but you're still going to need some metal to make the sword, because you don't have that yet. So, and then later on, there's like, oh no, there's a zombie attack, and it's like, quick, you better run to the left there, because otherwise, the zombie's going to get on top of you. And it's like, it's crazy. This thing is reacting in real time to visual input stimuli. And responding honestly like an experienced player of Minecraft would. And this is built into Windows now, by virtue of the link to ChatGPT. Microsoft, I believe, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Microsoft took a stake in ChatGPT. So this is not entirely surprising in OpenAI. The funny thing about OpenAI is OpenAI started out as a open AI process. This is one of the things that Elon Musk was a little miffed about, because I believe he was also an early, you'd call an investor, but a backer of the OpenAI project. But then they took themselves private, and and the whole thing is run for profit now. Anyway, Microsoft is decided that they're going to integrate this whole thing straight into Windows, and then they also decided we're going to now introduce not just this kind of easy integrations and stuff like that, where it's like, oh yeah, we'll make smarter search or something like that. They're going to say, okay, we're going to introduce a whole new line of AI-based PCs as an update to their Surface line. And if you guys haven't seen this yet, again, I'll try to post links in the show. Let me see if have I got it over on the other screen? Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay, guys, quickly in the chat, I'm going to try to play this, but tell me if the sound comes through, because I know we've had trouble with this in the past. If the sound doesn't, just give me a quick up or down once I start playing, okay? And come on, you can do it. Play. yes, my new problem is going to be how to hit the play button over on that screen. So give me just a second to find the remote control for that one, because my monitor that lets me see the whole thing is elsewhere. Okay, here we go. All right, and I gotta put my mouse control back to that screen. Come on, we can do this. I know we can do this. Okay, there we go. Ah, crap. Sorry about that, guys. No sound. Anyway, sorry. That is Yeah, no sound, not even on StreamYard. Damn it. StreamYard, your sound is very interesting. That's why I was actually taking all these clips and posting them over to my Stream Deck, but there was some transmission problems on it, and all the frames came through. And as soon as it hits a bad frame, the HyperDeck just says "to heck with you," and it goes away. But let me see if I can get up to. Yeah, I'm just going to roll some of this video up here as we talk about some of these laptops, just so you can give an idea what they're talking about. And I'm just going to go ahead and talk right over them. So give me just a second here. And that would be the screen 4. Got it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to say a few things about them. Number one, they look great. I mean, by any objective standard, these are good looking computers. So, they are also brilliantly spec'd. They are making an effort to hit Apple right where it hurts in terms of they're approaching it with new silicon. They're using the Snapdragon X Elite as their mobile processor of choice. It looks like the processing speed is off the hook, while at the same time having amazing power specs. So I'd say the biggest loser in this entire day is Intel. Um, um, anyway, so very, very, um, they're claiming, you know, Um, let me go to some other stuff they've got on here. They have a really interesting. Okay, and they're showing in this bit right here, like the power consumption that you can run through 1 million web pages before the power gives out. 22 hours of video. I mean, also all sorts of demo types of things. Was very happy to see that they have Wi-Fi 7 built into these ones. So they're definitely embracing future-looking standards. But they're also doing some really clever things from a hardware standpoint in terms of things like just keyboards. If I can get to the, oh yeah, so here's the keyboard. Uh, either attachment or you can use it as a keyboard. Just set in your lap, set it in the flip it right back onto the bottom, use it as an integrated laptop. Um, you know, Absolutely stunning. I mean, I don't know where they're getting their hardware designers from right now, but they're as good as anything I've seen come out of Apple ever. I mean, this is one that, like, for the first time in forever, I can't wait to get my hands on the hardware. Yeah, I mean, this has been the first genuinely exciting looking laptop I've seen in a decade. Um, yeah. Oh, and also pen-based haptic pen-based inputs. So it also doubles as your graphic tablet. So yeah, no, I mean, absolutely crazy what they're doing here. But the other thing, other than having really interesting hardware design, they've adding a new processor to our lives that we've never heard of before, a thing called an NPU, which is a neural processor unit, which is specifically there to do AI stuff. And they're claiming that it will run, and again, with very, very low power. I mean, if this were Intel, it'd be burning your desk down. But with the same kind of power that runs on mobile devices, they're claiming 40. This is a new acronym for us. You guys have heard about megaflops or kiloflops. Those are millions of floating point operations. We used to always hear computers spec in that. They're talking about TOPS, trillions of operations. Now, they're not floating point operations. Clearly, whatever these operations are quite simple to do, but 40 trillion operations per second for the neural unit that's built into these ones, in addition to the graphic unit, in addition to the CPU. So crazy stuff. I mean, I really want to know what these things cost, because if they're less than about $5,000, I'm like, sign me up. So anyway, really interesting from a hardware standpoint. Really, really forward-looking design. And honestly, it looks as good as anything I've ever seen from anybody anywhere. And I'm talking to you, Apple. Yeah, I mean, they're really throwing down the gauntlet on this one. But now it gets really interesting in that well, okay, what are we going to do with all this stuff? Now we talked about the OpenAI integration, with ChatGPT. They promised a few other things. They're tricking out. Wait for this one. MS Paint. MS Paint is getting generative AI. This is of course the first thing that we wanted. We were thinking, God, what is the tool that I'm thinking I'm going to create the next masterwork in my life in, and they did it with Paint. They also are adding writing tools to Notepad. So I mean, on one hand, it makes perfect sense. The other hand, it's absolutely balls out crazy. I mean, it's absolutely nuts. I mean, you would think that they would introduce some kind of pro level tool for these things, or partner with Photoshop or something, but or throw it in Word, for God's sake. But no, they threw it in Paint and Notepad as far as their AI creation tools. So that's a thing. But the one that's got everyone talking, the one that is absolutely, again, crazy. I mean, is they've decided that they're going to revisit a feature they had called Timeline. And Timeline, you guys probably don't even remember it. The idea was it was almost like a steal from Apple. I mean, Microsoft and Apple. I mean, having worked with both and worked for Apple for 9 years, they. I mean, first of all, a lot of employees swap back and forth between the two companies, but they're definitely, I mean, they're staring at each other when they're trying to figure who their competition is. And so there's definitely there's definitely a rivalry on the whole thing, but there's also a lot of cross-pollination between those those two guys. What they've decided to do with, sorry, I'm just had about 15 other thoughts intrude on the whole thing. I'm trying to get back to my original train of thought on this one. So Timeline was undoubtedly inspired as a product name from the idea of the time capsule, which was the backup strategy for Apple. Apple had a very, very slick backup thing. I believe they still do, built in all their devices, where you can sit there and it just gives you a slider, and it says like, yeah, I'd like to roll my computer back to 11:57 on Tuesday, and then it would figure all the files it had to do to get you back to 11:57 on Tuesday, and it did with some very nice, it does with some very nice animations, and then it's like and restart your machine, and it's now 11:57 on Tuesday. Exactly where your files were. Whenever Apple comes up with just honestly a great demo for file selection, that's what that was. I mean, file selection of files modified at, before a certain date, that is not nearly as cool as the idea of take a screenshot every time you do a backup and then show a slider where you can show things rolling back in time, and then put that together with file selection of modified before a certain date. Apple sells the hell out of this stuff every once in a while, and it really gets under the skin of people like Microsoft. So when Microsoft had an idea for a completely different feature, which was they wanted to say, yeah, I want to roll back like my browser history. They thought, well, we can't call it, time capsule. Let's call it Timeline. And so we'll roll your computer stuff back there. Problem, of course, no showmanship. Nobody really wanted it. And so the feature failed and it was quietly discontinued. Well, it's back, and it's called Recall now. So you'll be hearing a lot about the AI-based recall of Windows 11 coming soon to a computer, well, to a new computer near you, because it's not going to run on your computer. It's going to only run on these Copilot Plus certified PCs, which require an NPU, which you don't have in your computer, because the only one that exists in the world is on a Snapdragon X Elite processor. It's going to require 256 gigs of SSD, and probably pretty fast SSD, and at least 16 gigs of RAM. But it's that NPU, which is going to lock it down to a couple of new Dell units. I think it was LG or Lenovo, but they announced. But of course, the new Microsoft Surface units are going to be the first ones to the market, and apparently they're hitting in June. So that is a thing that's going to happen. But Copilot Plus PCs are going to be able to run a service called Recall. What Recall does, and this is something we have not seen before, is it more or less intelligently figures out when enough of your screen has changed, which comes down to about every 5 seconds, is from what I'm hearing. And it takes a screenshot of it. And so you then can roll back not your files to where they were on a certain time, but you can sit there, basically and say, yeah, what was I looking at 2:23 a.m.? Or more importantly, because it's taking all these screenshots and saving them on your hard drive every 5 seconds. Wrap your head around that one. But it then can use AI with that neural processing unit that you didn't know you needed to intelligently figure out the tags from what it was you're looking at, and more or less allow you to do searching just by saying, yeah, man, yeah, I was looking at this auto part, last week, sometime early. It had something to do with the brakes, and it could go and pull up a picture of like a brake drum or a caliper or something like that, even if it didn't have the word brake anywhere near it, because it knows what a brown handbag is, and so it'll recognize, even if the word brown handbag doesn't appear anywhere on the screen, it can have recognized the content and allow you to do semantic searching on the whole thing, from a text-based description of what it was that you're looking for, that thing I was looking at the while back. So if this is a use case in your life, if you are the kind of person who finds yourself saying, yeah, what was that article I was looking at back, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, something to do about, I don't know, some kind of new AI thing that takes a picture and lets you make it sing, right? This thing would apparently fill the bill and get you there. But let's also wrap up, let's wrap up the implications of what this is doing. It's taking a picture of your screen every 5 frickin' seconds and storing it. Now, it's storing it on your machine, and they say none of this data goes to their servers. Let's assume that for Rev 1.0 that's even true. Because again, that's a thing. But and thankfully Microsoft has never had security problems ever. No one's ever hacked a machine and been able to look through history and do things like that. And they also say, oh, don't worry about it. You can tell it don't record if you're in certain websites, or and I'm sure we all know which ones we're talking about. Or that you can record only certain applications or things like that. Like you're going to remember to do this, right? You're signing up to be to spy on yourself in a way that we have never dreamed of before. I mean, it's funny because I have an inquisitive side of me, and as a kid I always wanted to be James Bond, and so I'm interested in spy stuff. I have not actually done these things, but I mean, I know what a USB keylogger is. I know what various other things are that you could use to hack onto people's machines and get their stuff and and do nasty things. Never in my craziest imagination would I think that someone would self-install, or really more to the point, allow it the default settings, which they didn't really understood when they got their new PC and it looked really awesome, and it gave you some privacy settings that the defaults were all like, oh yeah, sure, let Microsoft see everything. The defaults, when people don't understand things, are the default setting is always, it's eternal. It's always the one people are going to go with. I would never believe we would live in a world where every single one of us carries around a GPS tracker on us all the time, monitoring our every movement. That we would be installing, something that would be taking our computer's contents every 5 seconds and storing it someplace, which, yeah, they say Microsoft servers will not get to, but certainly someone who could get to your machine could get to. I mean, absolutely astonishing. And this is for the use case that we're solving on this one is, yeah, what else, how else am I going to find that thing I was looking at last week, which to Microsoft is that's their idea for what the killer app is on this one, is forgetting what that thing was that you were looking at a while ago and needing to do it. And so for that reason, you're going to throw this enormous amount of surveillance and firepower at that particular problem. We're in for a really interesting world. I'm just going to say, and I would, it's funny because the early tech guy reactions on this one are exactly what you'd think. I mean, they're saying, hey, this is creepy AF. Who would do this, etc. And yet, when the walls don't immediately cave in on people who do this sort of thing, don't people get used to it? I mean, you and I at this point are used to the idea that, yeah, the NSA is, spying on all our communications. We just kind of accept it. I mean, I just wish that the NSA would be kind enough, and when I lose a file and we don't have an immediate backup, that that it could say like, hey, NSA, is there like a number where you could forward those files back to me? Because clearly you've got this huge server farm that's got copies of everything that came across, my desktop, or not my desktop, but my internet. I mean, after a while, you just sort of accept it. You just sort of accept the idea that we're all wearing trackers. I mean, this thing was the source of spy and cop movies back in the 80s. It's like, oh, don't worry, we got a tracker on him. We bugged his vehicle. Now the idea that, like, no, I can tell exactly where the guy is because I'm watching his phone. We just assume that. The idea that you've got a device in your house, maybe in every room you've got, that's always listening to you with an always on microphone, that's just listening for what you're doing. And also that they will actually say, oh yeah, we are recording your stuff, but don't worry, it's anonymized. And so we're not going to, we don't specifically tell people it's you, but, should we, for debugging purposes, need to go back and review things, yes, you can hear all the things that your Alexa has, that you've ever said, Alexa, and then whatever the next 10 seconds that follows. All those things are preserved. Our doorbell cameras, if we have a Ring doorbell camera, it's recording every freaking minute of the day, broadcasting to the Ring servers. And anyone who works at the company, which I believe is now Google, who now owns Google owns Nest. So they're merely spying on your Nest camera and your thermostat. I believe Ring is that Amazon. But anyone who works at those companies in the appropriate, basically can call up the device ID, can watch the video out of your doorbell. There's no security other than the device ID. If you have a smart connected furnace or water heater and so forth, very, very good chance that it's effectively not protected. So with many of the popular ones, the guys who are working with the APIs are like, wait a minute, so all I need to know is the email of the account holder, and I can remote control his thermostat. There's nothing else that locks this down. And the answer with this, very popular water heater is nope, that's it. That's all you got to do. As a matter of fact, if you know the email, it will tell you the address, and you can put his thing on recirculate and burn up all his energy. You can make sure he scalds himself in the shower. You can make sure the water's cold on him. So, I mean, yeah, the idea that these guys are going to preserve your security in any real way is, well, I mean, we haven't seen it till now, and I don't know what would cause it to change. But anyway, yeah, we're in for a really, really weird way. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for now, because honestly, I think I need to think about this for a while. I mean, I'm still in the initial shock mode on this one. But I guess my gut tells me, as much as I would like to believe as a tech guy that, oh no, everyone will turn this stuff off. Who's going to sign up to have them monitoring? I'd say that the historical record of what we actually do, if it does something that's convenient for us, is we leave the defaults on. And if the defaults give up our privacy, we're like, yeah, but it does that thing that's kind of cool. I could say, Alexa, set a timer for 30 minutes. I need to be able to take the barbecue off, and the fact that it's listening to everything else, you just kind of ignore it, because unless it comes back to you, no reason for you to care, right? Anyway, so with that said, so let's see. Greg wants to remind everyone. So this is PSA time. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. And if you're watching, please leave comments. Like I say, the comment on the YouTube, please, just like anything, like, Pete, your hair looks amazing. Just whatever the thing is, or this was the dumbest thing I ever heard, or this was really interesting. Whatever the thing is, the fact that you engage at all apparently really drives the algorithm in a big way. So we really appreciate it. But do hit that subscribe. We are slowly eking our way up here, and I do appreciate every one of you who do that. We also have message boards on the forums at forums.comicbase.com, and there's a dedicated thread for other topics that you'd like to request, and we will talk about those. I will also, speaking of which, I will get to the one tech question that came up here in just a second. And there's also live stream episodes of note. Interesting. So check that one out as well. And also there's a torrent to Andre's world famous ComicBase cover catalog. Oro says, bet the cops / NSA, etc. will love this feature. You're damn right. any coding to make it unaccusable. I'm not sure what unaccusable would mean. I mean, the idea right now is that you have the option to turn it off. So I mean, it's funny because as much as I can't wait to get my hands on one of those new Surface Pros, I mean, they look sexy as hell. I mean, they really look like a great PC. You know, the one feature I'm really not looking forward to doing is recall. Yeah, I'm like, no, I honestly, I've never had enough of a need for, hey, what was that thing I was doing 2 weeks ago, to feel like I want anybody but anybody spying on my stuff to that level, including myself. No, just hard pass for me. But that's me. I think most people, I think as this stuff gets normal, I think count on people taking the default. And if the default does not preserve your privacy, then goodbye privacy. All right, so now Noah Cutler, and thank you, by the way, Steve, for answering that one. Is there a way to have ComicBase tell me if I'm scanning a duplicate comic that's already in my collection? So not directly, but so I mean, there isn't like a feature in ComicBase that, like, if you're scanning a comic book that you've already scanned, it goes bing and says, "Are you sure you want to scan the second copy?" No, it's not a feature like that. But one thing you can do is, as you're adding comics to inventory, and this is a thing I always do anyway, if you click that option which says show added comics after saving, one thing that will, what it'll do is it'll pull up the list of everything you just added. And if you look down that list and you see quantity that's not one, if you just see quantity two, matter of fact, you can sort the list by quantity. If you see quantity two, it's like, oh, if you're the kind of guy who never, ever, ever adds a second copy, that would tell you, oh yeah, those were the ones you added the second copy for accidentally. So that's probably about as best as I can do for you on that one just at the moment. All right, I'm going to save the other reporting questions, reporting expert. I save that one for next live stream, but I also want to let everyone know that next live stream I'm also going to try to go through what I've found out about running ComicBase under Parallels and UTM. And on both an old and a new MacBook Pro, because for some reason my desk is awash in Mac equipment right now. So anyway, thank you everyone. Appreciate you all coming out here, and I'm getting talked out, so I'm gonna call this one a night. You have a good one, and let's hope we all survive our respective storms. You take care. Bye bye.